James was northbound on I-25, just outside of Albuquerque. Pickup truck crossed the center lane and hit him. A motorcycle accident in New Mexico. No fault on his part. Police report said the other driver crossed the line. Within 48 hours of his call to the insurance company, the adjuster was asking him, was he wearing a helmet? Had he been drinking? Was he speeding? That wasn't due diligence. That was a tactic. Insurance companies are trained to build a case against riders from day one. And most riders don't know that what's happening is legal, even deliberate. By the time you understand the playbook, it may have already cost you thousands. So let me tell you exactly how this works, because understanding is the first thing that changes your outcome. The adjuster question. Too many insurance adjusters who pick up a call on a motorcycle claim are operating from a default position. The rider was at least partially responsible. Before they pull the police report, before they look at the evidence, the rider is already in the fault column. That is where the negotiation starts. I know this because I used to be on the other side of this. I did defense work, and I represented insurance companies and healthcare providers. Motorcycle files are built different from the first call, and the approach is almost always the same. Find out what the rider did wrong, not what the other driver did, what the rider did. Find that, and you have leverage over their claim. Now, when I cross over to the plaintiff side, I've got that knowledge with me. So when an adjuster tries that playbook on one of my clients, now I recognize all the moves. And so here is what early questions are actually doing. Helmet, they're trying to establish that you contribute to your own injuries. Alcohol, obvious. Speed, traffic violation. Leverage. Each answer you give is a building block they use to reduce what they pay out. And the reason they ask that fast within the first day or two is because you haven't talked to anyone yet. You don't know what you're handing them. Those questions feel like procedure, like they're just gathering facts. And they're not. They're constructing a narrative, right? And if you answer without understanding what you're giving them, you may have already weakened your own case before anyone even looks at the evidence. Now I want to talk about the helmet question specifically because I need to get this right. In New Mexico, helmets are required for riders under 18. That is it. If you're an adult, you are not legally required to wear a helmet in the state. And that, under state law, is your right as a rider. At the same point, here's what you need to understand. If you were not wearing a helmet and you suffered a head injury, the insurance company may ask about it and may try to use it in negotiations. But New Mexico has a helmet-specific rule. Failure to wear a required helmet does not constitute contributory negligence under the statute. So do not assume that the adjuster gets to automatically attach a fault percentage to you just because you were not wearing one. The real question is what the evidence shows about how your injuries were actually caused, not whether you had a helmet on. I'm not here to tell you what to wear on your bike. That's your call and your decision. But I am telling you that the adjuster is going to ask, and you should know going into the conversation exactly what the law actually says, not what they want you to think it says. So let's next talk about lane splitting because I can get this question often from riders. New Mexico does not authorize lane splitting. Riders can be cited under the state's lane use rules for it. If you were splitting lanes at the time of the accident, this will come up. The adjuster will argue that you were violating traffic law and that it contributed to the crash. But here's where a lot of riders get it wrong. They assume that because they were doing something technically illegal, their whole claim is gone. And that is not how New Mexico works. New Mexico is a pure comparative fault state. NMSA 1978, section 41-3A-1. That means you can recover damages even if you were partially at fault for the accident. If you were 40% at fault, you recover 60% of your damages. And if you're 20% at fault, you recover 80%. There is no threshold where you get cut off entirely. So the question with lane splitting is not whether the adjuster gets to use it against you. They might. The question is whether the lane splitting actually caused or contributed to your crash, and by what percentage. That is a factual fight, and is a fight worth having with someone in your corner who knows how to handle it. Here is what pure comparative fault really means for riders in practice. Most people assume that if the adjuster can find anything a rider did wrong, the claim is over. It isn't. The insurance company still has to assign a fault percentage to each party. What they do is work to inflate yours. They could take a case, whether the rider might be 0 or 10% responsible, and they try to push it 40, 50%, even higher if possible. Every percentage point they add to your side is money that comes out of your settlement. That's the game. And it's played on riders, specifically because adjusters know the assumptions about motorcycles run deep, right? They know jurors and claim supervisors often carry their own biases about bikes, so they lean on it. If you've been in this situation, if an adjuster gave you a number early and something didn't feel right about it, I want to hear from you. Drop a comment below. A lot of riders don't realize how common this is. Now, here's what I've seen happen when riders handle those claims without a lawyer. The offer comes in early. It sounds like a number. The rider is dealing with injuries, a damaged bike, missing work, and real pressure to just take something and move on. So they do. And they leave real money on the table. I've gotten calls from riders weeks after they settle. They signed the release. They took the check. And I have to tell them that once that release is signed, the door is closed. That's one of the harder conversations I have to have in this work. And I won't pretend otherwise. Now, at the same point, the riders who call me first, that's where the work actually gets done. Because I know what the adjuster's file looks like from the start and how to respond to every piece of it. So if you've been in a motorcycle accident in New Mexico, here's what you should do. First, do not give a recorded statement to the other driver's insurance company before you talk to someone. You are not required to. I have a whole separate video on exactly what to say and what not to say when adjusters call, and I will link that below. But the short version is this. Don't volunteer information. Don't let them walk you through a narrative before you understand your rights. Second, document your treatment and keep the chain tight. Gaps in medical records get used against injured people across every kind of claim. Go to your appointments. Follow through on your treatment plan. Your health has to be the priority. But a gap looks like you weren't that hurt. and adjusters use that. Third, account for all your damages, not just the bike, your medical bills, your lost wages, your gear, days you didn't have a vehicle at all. Riders often focus on the property damage only and undervalue the bodily injury side of things. Don't do that. Both matter. And fourth, call someone who understands how this works. It's free. You don't know what you don't know. And in a motorcycle accident claim in New Mexico, that gap is expensive. The roads out here carry real riders. I-25 between Albuquerque and Santa Fe, I-40 heading west, the stretches through the northern part of the state, these are serious riding roads. And the crashes there are even more serious. The injuries, even more serious than that. And the bias that follows as riders into the claims process makes a hard situation harder than it needs to be. If you are riding within the law and you got hurt, you deserve to know what you're actually entitled to. That's the whole point. If you're dealing with an adjuster right now, the next video covers exactly what to say and what not to say when they call. That is the one to watch next. Riders, have you ever felt like an adjuster treated you differently because you're on a motorcycle? Tell me about it below. I'm going to read every comment. If you need to talk, give me a call. It's free. Hudson Injury Law. I'm attorney Damon. 505-416-4150. HudsonInjuryLaw.com. Take care and thank you.